what you know about me.
I
Oh,
love the honesty in that answer, and I do want to bring up one thing, and I hope you don't mind talking about this because, like, you surviving cancer, and I have a lot of family members who have passed away from cancer. I have some that currently have it right now, and like, I would love for you to kind of tell us where you were in that space and what was your initial reaction, because I would love to know how did you get that spirit to just say, man, I'm going to beat this, and you beat it, and
yeah.
you knocked it out of the park. So I would love to hear that story if you don't mind sharing it with us.
I, I would absolutely love to share. Actually, it's 15 years this month that I received my diagnosis.
God bless.
I had been sick for a while, about 7 months. I was constantly going to my doctor, and she unfortunately just wasn't taking me seriously. I was a 30-year-old. She kept saying I had sinus infections, and
Yeah,
I was overexerting myself and doing certain activities, and just wasn't taking it seriously. That something could potentially have been more wrong with me, and so I wound up in an emergency room where they, did a handful of tests, transferred me to another hospital. I was like, oh, called it pneumonia at first because you can't make a diagnosis based on imaging. You actually need
yeah,
biopsies. And so I
yeah,
would, fire every doctor that I had, start over with a brand new team of folks. My father had undergone cancer about 3 years before my diagnosis. So, and my grandparents had cancer. Like I just had been around it so much that, my very pragmatic brain came into play, and I got a
yeah,
binder and I started printing out, okay, so these are my appointments and these are my test results and what are we doing next? And, the whole chemo, lost my hair, actually shaved it before I lost it because I wanted to be in control of making those type of decisions for my journey. Radiation, got to the other side of it, had still an active PET scan. They were like, we don't know if this is going to end up in bone marrow transplant or not, but we have to wait 3 months and let the radiation get out of your scans. So go live your life for 3 months. And in that 3 months, I was like, well, I've got nothing to do other than work. And by the way, I worked the entire time. That was probably the
wow,
best mental stability that I had, was working for an incredibly supportive team and CEO who happens to be the CEO I get to work with every day at Ruby, who had such compassion and said, we're going to figure this out together. And what do you need? And like, that was how this long journey of me eventually coming full circle and working with her again started, because at a very early age, when I was at my lowest point, she found such compassion and grace to support me. But I went through everything, and then I had to wait. And so I was like, well, I'm going to fundraise because somebody before me invested dollars that got to a treatment that potentially saved my life. And so I
so
started fundraising and have never stopped. And so I would eventually get an all clear. This March will be my official 15 years in remission. And I never have lost sight of that this is not the outcome for a lot of cancer survivors. And so I do what I can in the way that I mentor recently diagnosed folks with similar cancers to mine. I'm still fundraising. I sit on the local American Cancer Society here in town. I do a carnival every year in my community. This
love,
year tipped me to $100,000 in contributions since I started fundraising. It was a big milestone that I wanted to hit, but I believe that uh, I needed to embrace what was in front of me. My friends were getting married and having children, and I was fighting for my life. It was a very crazy time, but that whole experience humbled me to a place where it, it's how I have empathy for strangers I've never met. It's how I can cry at a commercial with like no, like what, how like 30 seconds and it can get me, and my husband will make fun of me, and I'm like, I just have this deep empathy and compassion for others because I at my lowest point found people that brought me back up, and on the other side of this, all of my dreams came true. And so how do I not have to bear that responsibility to make sure that that dynamic changes for others? And um so that's my journey.
I love it, and that hit me to the core. I don't know if you can see it, like I'm just sitting there getting teary eyed as you
Oh,
say it. Like I love this story, and I love your spirit. So like, there's a few
oh,
things that you said. Like, I'm gonna cut my hair off. I'm gonna be in charge of that. You had family who's had it. You could have easily just said, "This is it for me." Like, this
Yeah.
is it. And so I know a lot of people that do that. Like, I couldn't imagine what that was like. And I know, especially
Yeah.
where I'm at, like, I couldn't imagine. So shout outs to you. Kudos to you. I'm so glad that you got over it. Thank you for sharing your story, because that's nothing but strength, and then that you
Yeah.
got through it. I'm so happy that we're able to have this conversation. And I hope,
Hmm.
somebody does hear this and be like, you know what? It's not the end.
Yeah.
You fight. You keep fighting. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. And please send me the link too for the charity. So every time I
Oh,
post a link, a clip or something like that, let's get it in there.
thank you. Thank you.
Please do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So,
No,
well,
I appreciate you
this has
sharing.
been so much fun.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you can all tell I'm an open book. If you're watching this and you need a hype person, you need somebody to help you figure out what your next career move might be, hit me up like that.
Yeah.
That's how I fill my cup and find kind of joy. I talked to this woman back in January, and she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna find the courage. And I saw her LinkedIn post about a new job like a month ago, and I was like, what? You did it? Oh my God, I am so proud of you. I've never met her. We had 2 conversations in a resume that I reviewed for her, and that was it. And I'm now here. Like, whatever you need, the rest of your career, I'm here to be that voice when somebody else, including yourself, is saying you shouldn't do it, and go for it. So
That's it. That's
hit
what it's
me
all
up.
about. That's what it's all about. Please hit up Rebecca. Like, she's a great, you guys see it. I don't have to tell you, you guys see it.
Mm,
So like, I'm so glad that you took time out your day to share your story. Like, I'm thoroughly moved. I'm glad we had this conversation. You always have an invite here if you want to come back. Like, you always have an
oh,
invite. You know
oh
that,
gosh,
but
I feel like we could talk for hours. But thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. So
absolutely. So thank you for everybody watching. I know I saw some comments. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to everybody who's on the check-in. Thank you guys, for still supporting everything we do. We've got 50 downloads for the season so far. Like, it's so much work to be a full-time dad, do this and full-time work and do all these things. But like, the energy I get from these conversations mean everything, and the support and love that you guys give me, like, it really helps me, guys. So thank you, guys. I love you guys. Next week we got a great episode. We got Eric Toda on, who's actually the global social media strategist at Meta and doing a lot of crazy stuff with the metaverse. So I'm all Web 3.0. I want to know all that stuff. I need to know. So we're gonna get it in. So thank you again, guys. We'll see you next week. And Rebecca, much love again, and thank you for
thank
tuning in
you.
for another great episode of More Than the Title. See you guys.